Well, I guess it's a good time to just kind of think through how did this start? How did we get to this point?
I know we started in a board meeting, texting back and forth, and I was terrified because I was sitting across the table from Dawn Like, and I thought for sure, like, she's going to catch me, right? Like, my boss is going to see me looking down at my phone every 5 minutes because these geniuses at the other end of the table keep texting back and forth.
Oh, she knew.
She knew. Yeah,
They
she
all
knew.
knew.
Yeah, it was a running joke.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think
it's because we're all giggling at the same time. I don't know. Like, what's going on?
I think that's how it started. Was we're sitting in those meetings, and then we were just the four of us were in the same meeting at the same time every week, and then we would text each other jokes about things going on, and then it just kept going and going outside of the meeting, and then I think eventually, somebody would ask a serious question, and we would just text and answer. I think that's how it at least got started. It wasn't until years later before I think, right, years later before we got started on something a little more.
I think it was definitely a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
'cause
was text for a long time.
We also didn't all know each other really well yet.
That's true.
I mean,
No.
Jeremiah and I had some history in Texas together, and a little bit in the youth department and things like that. We were in training together, but otherwise, we weren't a tight knit group. We didn't know each other very well. Maybe y'all did more than.
No, we didn't either. I mean, we had come back to Florida in our positions.
John didn't even like you very much.
Yeah.
Well, we were in the same aero class. I'm waiting for John to say.
I didn't remember
He
that.
didn't even remember. We literally
No.
did 2 years of the same
Yeah, I blocked
leadership
that out.
program, and he's like,
I
"Who
blocked
are
that
you?"
out. Well, you always wore that Canada hat, so I
did.
just thought you were from
Oh,
Canada.
I did.
Right.
The toque.
There you go. There you go. But I think part of the draw was that it was kind of new, and we were all kind of, we're not hugely different in age, and we were in a situation where the next Cam's the old guy, but the next group, they seem to be, I don't want to say struggling, but they seem to be not concerned with kind of what we were concerned with in our lives at that time. Is that a fair assessment? So we kind of
think so.
gravitated
Yeah.
toward,
Yeah.
hey, here's another group of folks who are really kind of thinking about the same stuff that I am. I think we're at least laughing at the same things that are being said or discussed or whatever. And I think that kind of brought us together a little bit, at least in the meetings to start with.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, because we really didn't know each other that much. No.
I think that's what led to some success of us that text chain becoming something more was because it was like relaxed and lighthearted and a place to laugh first, right? Like I think
Yeah.
when you laugh, like you were saying, Cam, it gives you an opportunity when you can laugh with people. Like there begins to be some trust, right? And then people start to that tears down some walls, and you're getting to just know one another. And I think that's what helped start this was just being, hey, like this is light. It didn't go.
Yeah.
The first question wasn't like, how was your holiness experience? Right.
No.
Yeah, that was a great part about it too. It was like nobody was serious. Like, right? It was just
Well, Cam occasionally.
well, Cam, yeah. But other than that, we weren't that serious.
No.
No, and that was the fun part because, for me, it was my first time to be on a big divisional staff, kind of a corporate type setting. And so trying to figure out and navigate what that looks like, but then to have these other guys that are, similar things going on in life. I mean, you've got 2 girls, I've got 2 girls, you've got Michael, and then Cam has raised kids.
Right.
So he knows what kids are about. So just to be able to relate to one another, but then enjoy the moment, right? And just kind of laugh with each other, at each other, whatever may come up. That, to me, that was the best part or the biggest part of the draw for me is like, I have an outlet that I can talk to people, share people, say stupid stuff and, not get criticized, or humiliated in front of everybody because it's just this group of guys.
I do remember a couple of times too where we were early on, I mean, in tiny little pieces where it was kind of like, hey, there's either this is about to happen or pray for this real quick, and we kind of tested the waters. We weren't there yet, but we tested the waters with something like,
For sure.
hey, I have a need or whatever else. Or I remember occasionally either saying something or texting something that was like, maybe I wish I hadn't have said that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And having to experiment with saying to the group of guys, which you just want to be, whatever. But to experiment with saying, that probably wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. And that was kind of testing of the water thing. So early on, it was just us goofing off, and then occasionally recognizing we're not just idiots. We're all pastors and ministers and whatever. So it was good.
I think you nailed it, Cam. Like that, I think that's what has helped me the most with this. And like, especially if other people, as we talk with other people who are like, oh man, I wish I was like in a group of people that I could talk to. I think you just said it, right? Somebody's got to go first. Somebody has to be willing to go first. So it started off as jokes, but then just like you said, somebody had to text, hey, like I'm about to go into a meeting. You guys mind praying for me? Like that, you're putting yourself out there. This was just a text group. And then it just builds over time. But I think that's the key, right? Is we always kind of wait for somebody else to take the lead. Sometimes you're the one where you got to be, I'm going to put myself out there, see how this goes.
I think we've talked about this before. We talked about it recently when we were together. What I appreciate about this group is that I've tried to nail down that kind of who pushed this forward, right? And not even into the deeper areas of our lives, but who was the one that said, hey, we should do this. We should. And I don't have a definitive, I can't put my finger on any one of you and say, you're the one that brought this forward. And I think for me, that's important. For me, it feels like it started very lighthearted and, hey, let's just, let's talk and laugh. And I think in a very clear, very real way, it still is that, right? There's still that component that's huge
Definitely
within this relationship. And I think that's what keeps it moving is that ability that to cover everything. If there was a not a criticism, but every once in a while, Christina, my wife, she'll hear something and she's like, do you ever talk about anything important? I'm like, yes, of course we do.
All of it's important.
Yes.
But there still is that very lighthearted, relaxed, I love to hear your voices in the morning and see what's going on and make fun of somebody, right? This is something.
We're pastors. We're pastors, everybody.
But that's all still such an important part for me.
Yeah.
And I think that has to stay. It's the part that also helps give life, I think.
Yeah.
Nobody set out to say, hey, let's start a discipleship group.
No.
It just, and I wouldn't even say, would we say we're a discipleship group? It's just, I think the easiest way to define us is like, it's four dudes who just talk about life, the Army, things going on with us. And that's it. There's nothing formalized about it, right? It's still, it can be lighthearted, but there are times where people are like, hey, I got a burden. This is what's going on in my life.
I think that lighthearted, that relaxed, that, Cam's not driving this. Jeremiah's not driving this, right? It's not that way. That foundation of the way it started and it being relaxed gives a lot of space for us to also interject and to put other parts of our life into this group, to lay them on the table, because we've traveled long enough and become familiar enough with each other to know that it's a very safe place and this is going to be received and I'm going to get feedback that I need, whether I like it or not or want it or not, but it's going to be there. And even when, and I would say this, from it being as relaxed as it is, even when it's hard, when I receive it as hard, I know where it's coming from because we've also traveled long enough that I know your heart's for me. So I think that's so very important to me, the way that it started and how it still has that feel.
Yeah. Let's do the math real quick. Like, how many years has this been? I mean, the four of us all showed up at the same time in Florida, but we've all since then, I think it's 7 or 8 years, I think is how long that text chain started, right?
About.
I think it's longer than that. It has to be longer than that, right?
No.
It's 7 to 8 is exactly
7 to 8 is it. Yeah.
It just feels longer.
Yeah, some days.
So
John's like, are we
Because
still
I've
doing
had
this?
2 appointments since I left. And so now I'm in Kerrville, right?
who are you?
Yeah, me, Jeremiah, senior croc officer, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm in Kerrville. And so, 4 and then 2.5. So yeah, almost 7 years.
Okay.
Matt Satterley was the divisional youth secretary, the youth pastor, I guess, of Florida at the time. And now I'm stationed. Now you're in Kerrville. I'm here in Atlanta, here at territorial headquarters as the territorial youth guy.
Yeah. And John Murphy. I believe I was in personnel down in Florida and now in Atlanta as well, serving on the same building as you, Matt, in the ARC command as the ARC commander for not quite 2 years yet, I guess. Yeah.
What's an ARC?
Oh, I'm sorry, Adult Rehabilitation Center. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cam Henderson, I moved, Jeremiah and I moved the same year from Texas over to Florida, and I was in the
forgot that.
programs department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was there for 5 years. That's how I can think through the timing. And then moved 2.5 years ago to now Knoxville.
So 7.5.
Tennessee. 7.5
7.5,
years.
yeah.
7.5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Man.
Went quick.
Because that first year, it was just me and you. And then you guys came in that second year.
Yeah.
Saved y'all.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Well, thanks for joining us today on this episode. This is our group. This is what we do. This is for good and for bad, better and for worse. This is who we are. And we're grateful that you joined us. Hopefully it'll be helpful. And we invite you to come back next time and hear some more about how we do life together, how we disciple each other.